We all have that one piece of media from our childhood that wormed its way into our subconscious and never really went away. The kind of fleeting fear that lies just beneath the surface of your memories and makes you wonder if you just imagined it, if it ever really existed. For me, that vague childhood trauma was the 1997 anime film Perfect Blue by late famed director Satoshi Kon. So, let me set the scene. As a child in the mid to late 90s, anime was just starting to really gain mainstream success. Shows like Pokemon, Digimon, Sailor Moon, and Cardcaptors were among my favorite shows, so as a result, I would voraciously seek out anything anime related. One day I found this innocuous VHS in my house that caught my attention. Okay, it looked darker and more realistic than the usual anime I watched, and yes, it literally had a bloody woman on the cover, but I mean, it's a cartoon. How bad could it possibly be? Needless to say, my 9-year-old self could not handle it. Those of you who have been with the channel for a while know that I don't do very well with horror, and this was even more so the case as a kid. And yet, I sat enthralled. I couldn't quite process what I was watching, but like a terrible car crash, I couldn't look away. So I guess this is the part of the video where I should give you guys a quick rundown about what this movie is all about. The film follows Mima Kirigoe, a member of the Japanese idol group Cham, who retires from music to pursue an acting career. As she becomes a victim of stalking from an obsessed fan unhappy with her career change, gruesome murders begin to occur around her, and Mima starts to lose her grip on reality with visions of the ghost of her idol doppelganger tormenting her. Although most of the film faded from my innocent child brain, there were a few key moments that stuck with me over the years. The first is Mima's rape scene. Now, as a 9-year-old, I may have had a vague idea what that was, but this was my first time seeing it on screen, so it was quite upsetting and just stuck with me. Now, I'm gonna give you guys a fair warning. I will be showing clips of the movie that show simulated rape, so if you would rather not watch that, feel free to skip to the timestamp that I will have on screen right now. On set in her first acting role since leaving Cham, Mima is quickly thrown into the depths, specifically a rape scene. Mima is still emotionally fragile after the abrupt departure from her idol group, and the filming of the scene pushes her over the edge. The scene itself is jarring, with fast cuts and a disjointed soundtrack. It allows us as the audience to feel in some sense what Mima does, vicariously experiencing her fear and anxiety during the act. And although I was aware this wasn't real and everyone there were just actors, the way it was shot still unnerved 9-year-old me. And to be honest, even now, it is still very uncomfortable to watch. The lecherous faces of the men watching, the POV of Mima as she stares up at the ceiling lights with dead eyes as the event is happening. It's truly upsetting. Another thing that stuck with me through the years was Mima's stalker, Me-Mania. While the other characters in Perfect Blue are drawn in a realistic and normal way, Me-Mania is, well, the only word I can come up with is ghoulish. He is without a doubt the most chilling aspect of Perfect Blue in my opinion, and not only in his visual appearance, but in his mind and his motivations. The lengths he will go to preserve the true vision he has for Mima, his perceived ownership over her, how he always seems to be where she is in the background, just watching. Of course, as a kid, my fear of him was purely surface level. He looked like the epitome of the creepy predator who lures kids into his white van stereotype, so I was scared of him. And to be honest, even as a grown woman, he still skeeves me out. But for more subtle reasons I will touch on later. The third thing I remember from this movie was a specific song, which upon doing research I learned is called Virtual Mima. So unfortunately, I know the song is going to be copyright claimed, so I can't play it for you guys here, but I will have it linked in the description bar, or you can click on a card somewhere that should be popping up here. So feel free to pause, load up that song in another window, and play it in the background for the rest of this video for just an extra layer of creepiness. Perfect Blue is meant to take place in a realistic world, so the background music is minimal throughout the movie. But at a pivotal moment where Mima is having a distressing mental breakdown, this track, with its humming vocals and repetitive sounds, drones in the background and lets the audience know that shit has gone sideways. I don't think you need to watch the movie to understand why I found this track so unnerving, but trust me, it is that much more impactful in the context of the film. So for years I wondered if this was a real movie I watched or just some sort of fever dream I had as a kid. It wasn't until years later when I happened to come across it online by happenstance that the memories came flooding back. So after over 20 years, I recently sat down and watched Perfect Blue again to see if it was as scary as I remembered. And the answer to that is yes, but for reasons that were different than when I first watched it. Before I go any farther, I will just say I am not a film critic. There are many better analysis videos on YouTube if you would like a more in-depth look into Perfect Blue from people who are far smarter than me, but I will do my best to describe why Perfect Blue is so chilling. As a kid, a lot of the more nuanced themes went over my head. The fear I felt watching it was primal and simplistic. The rape scene, the scary-looking stalker, the violence, and the overall feeling that what I was watching was just wrong. Now, as an adult, there are layers to the horror I can better understand and appreciate. The big theme with Perfect Blue is the duality of self, the idea of the side of you show to the world and your real self. This is shown in the constant reflections throughout the movie. Mima's reflection, like the doppelganger, gives voice to her insecurities. We glimpse the psychosis through Mima's visions of herself in the environment, in mirrors, in windows, and in the reflection of the train's glass. At the beginning of the film, what she sees in her reflection is quote-unquote normal. But as the film goes on and Mima starts to lose her grip on reality, her doppelganger, the vision of the person she used to be, appears in her reflection to taunt her for her choice to leave her idle life behind. There are many moments where it's unclear if we are watching a scene from Perfect Blue as a whole, a scene from the crime drama Mima stars in, or a scene that never existed in reality at all. There's no music change or color scheme to tell audiences that something is off. Everything in Mima's world is familiar, yet unfamiliar, and that's what makes it so chilling. This leads into the other major theme of Perfect Blue: social media culture and its potentially harmful impact on one's mental health and sense of self. When the film came out in 1997, the internet was still in its infant stages, and no one really had a clue about social media and internet popularity. At the time the movie was made, the idea of something like this happening to a normal person was laughable. Mima is a Japanese pop idol, so it makes sense that her every move would be watched and scrutinized. However, the film is now more relevant than ever because now everyone has their own persona and audience online. Those of us who engage with social media experience a little sliver of what it's like to be Mima. We curate our lives and present what we want people to assume are perfect lives. Deep down, we want to impress those who look at our Instagram, Facebook page, and Twitter timeline. Just as Mima begins to lose grip of her reality, we are also lured into an online world where everyone has the perfect job, relationship, and life. We slip into a realm of anxiety trying to keep up with the Joneses and prove ourselves to strangers online. As a YouTuber, I can approach this idea from a unique perspective. Me and anyone who makes a living on social media rely on something called the parasocial relationships we have with our viewers. This is defined as a one-sided relationship where one person invests emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the persona, is completely unaware of the other person's existence. Twitch streamers, YouTubers, anyone whose career involves social media relies on our audience to like us as a person, or at least the persona we curate in order to be successful. Thankfully, as YouTube isn't my full-time job, I can step away and have a life outside of it, which I believe helps me maintain a healthy distance from the trappings of social media. But for those whose entire career is wrapped up in their online persona, they can easily find themselves in a situation like Mima, finding it harder to separate their online self from their true self. Perfect Blue shows someone losing grasp of who they are, with people perceiving us in ways that we don't choose and that perception becoming reality. And of course, with an audience comes the potential for obsession. Perfect Blue anticipated how the internet would be used to manipulate and scare people, especially through stalking. Khan imagines the worst-case scenario in Memania, who goes to disturbing lengths to claim Mima as his own. Almost every YouTuber or Twitch streamer with a decent-sized audience, especially if they happen to be female, have most likely experienced some form of harassment, and there are real and tragic examples of those who break through the barrier of the computer screen and harass, stalk, and even kill the objects of their obsession. Even in the 90s, Khan saw the potential dangers of unhealthy fixations with J-pop groups, and examined how that obsession would only grow with the help of the internet. And this prediction came true in ways even he could have never predicted. In a society dominated by social media clout and follower counts, Perfect Blue offered a glimpse into a digitally saturated world that would blur the line between online personas and reality. And it is this that makes Perfect Blue as frightening in 2020 as it was in 1997. So, TLDR, is Perfect Blue scary? Hell yes. If you like slow burn psychological horrors and you haven't seen Perfect Blue, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. Somehow this film is even more poignant and relevant than it was when it was released 23 years ago, and I'm so glad I gave it a second chance, even if I may have lost some sleep over it. Thank you guys so much for watching my journey back into childhood horror. I'd love to know what piece of media scarred you as a kid, or if you have any shows or films similar to Perfect Blue that you'd recommend. This was a really fun video to make, and if you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button so that I know, and maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future. I hope you guys have a very fun, safe, and happy Halloween, and be careful what you do online. You never know who might be watching. Special shout out to my top tier patrons: Namara Quito, Sparky, iCognito, Simon Rax, Mad Goldsmith, Harry Gazif, and Asborn Kennedy.